Have you ever completely ruined your week or maybe sparked a really bitterly tense argument with a colleague simply because you knew, like you absolutely 100% knew that your idea was better than theirs?
Oh, definitely. I think everyone listening has been there.
Right. I want you, the listener, to really picture that moment. Your blood pressure spikes, the room gets quiet, you feel that tightness in your chest, and you just dig your heels in.
Because facts are facts.
Exactly. If you're right, you feel this obligation to stand your ground.
We really do feel it on a visceral level.
Mm.
When we are challenged, our nervous system doesn't usually distinguish between a threat to our physical safety and, a threat to our idea.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
We conflate being correct with being respected or even being competent. So we fight, we debate, we bring the most logical arguments to the table. And honestly, our culture absolutely rewards us for winning those battles.
It totally does. But today, we are taking that exact urge, that deep biological and cultural need to be right, and looking at a piece of source material that completely dismantles it.
It really tears the whole concept apart.
It really does. We're doing a deep dive into a short, highly provocative essay from May 2023. It's by an author named Sufeng, and it's titled, "When You Claim to the Correctness of Your Viewpoint, Contradictions Arise."
Such an interesting title.
Yeah, and our mission today is to unpack this text because it presents a really radical approach to emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. The author is suggesting that holding on to your correctness, like no matter how factually accurate you are,
Yeah.
is actually a glaring sign of low intelligence.
Which completely inverts the way we are taught to operate in the world, right?
Totally.
The essay opens with a premise that literally every single person listening has lived through. It's the classic battle of Plan A versus Plan B.
Oh, the dreaded Plan A versus Plan B.
Exactly. You're working on a project, you staunchly support Plan A because, well, the data backs it up, but your collaborator just insists on Plan B.
Right.
The author writes that if neither side compromises, you aren't just having a disagreement, you are actively summoning a disaster.
That disaster.
Yeah, the text uses a very specific image here, describing anger and negative emotions swirling like a tornado.
Wow.
And it leaves everyone involved feeling depressed and joyless for days.
I actually love that tornado metaphor because it perfectly captures the collateral damage, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
It's never just about the spreadsheet or the marketing budget. It's the lingering emotional fallout, like the awkward silence in the break room the next day.
Yeah, you can cut the tension with a knife.
Exactly. And the author actually takes this everyday micro-level frustration and scales it up dramatically. The essay explicitly blames this rigid adherence to personal viewpoints for some of society's biggest structural fractures.
It really goes big.
It really does. It points to high divorce rates, arguing that marriages fail primarily because each side believes they are right and they just refuse to yield.
And, the text doesn't stop at marriages either.
No.
No, it draws a direct line from this behavior to business closures, where partners stubbornly stick to their individual visions until the company just completely collapses.
That's intense.
It gets bigger. It even scales up to the global stage, arguing that divergent viewpoints without compromise are the root cause of international Cold Wars.
Wait, international Cold Wars?
Yes. The underlying mechanism the author is pointing to is ego. Wherever people gather, if individuals tie their identity to their opinions, clashes become mathematically inevitable.
Mathematically inevitable, wow. But the author goes a step further and delivers a real gut punch to the reader.
They really do.
The text states unequivocally that if you are the one fervently clinging to your viewpoint, you are the cause of the discord. Like, you are the problem.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow.
It argues this behavior proves you lack understanding, open-mindedness, and emotional intelligence.
Which is incredibly confronting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the data proving Plan A will save the company $1 million, our instinct is to say, I'm not causing discord, I'm saving the business.
Right. And, okay, let's unpack this, because my immediate reaction is to push back hard on that.
I think that's a natural reaction.
Yeah. It feels like the author is describing a massive, ego-driven game of chicken where two drivers are speeding toward an intersection and they both crash their cars just to prove they had the right of way.
That's a great analogy.
But wait, if Plan A is objectively mathematically better than Plan B, isn't the author suggesting we should just, ignore reality to keep the peace? Are we supposed to just let the car crash to avoid an argument?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the essay fundamentally decouples the concept of reason from facts.
Decouples them? How so?
In a Western, corporate, or deeply analytical framework, Being reasonable means aligning your decisions with objective truth, right?
Right, facts are facts.
Exactly. But in this text, true reason is defined almost entirely by the psychological ability to maintain harmony.
Oh, wow.
The ultimate goal isn't making the most profitable business decision. The goal is to be what the text calls an extraordinary individual, someone whose presence makes collaborators feel happy, joyous, and free.
Happy, joyous, and free. I mean, that sounds wonderful, but also like a terribly tall order for a stressful Tuesday morning budget meeting.
It does sound a bit utopian.
Yeah. If clinging to our correctness destroys marriages and causes cold wars, how does the author suggest we actually function in a workplace? Like, how do things get done without descending into total chaos?
So the essay doesn't actually leave this as a vague philosophical ideal. It provides an incredibly rigid, absolute blueprint for collaboration.
Okay, I'm listening.
It breaks the workplace down into two distinct scenarios. The first scenario is when a project has a designated leader.
Okay.
The rule here is absolute submission to the hierarchy. Whoever's responsible for the task has the final say.
And the text takes us to an absolute extreme,
It
right?
really does.
It explicitly states that even if you are right 1,000 times and the person in charge is wrong 1,000 times, you must abide by their decision.
Yes.
It completely bans any form of pushback. No doubts, no entanglements, no silent protests.
And that prohibition against silent protests or passive resistance is a really crucial psychological detail.
What do you mean?
Well, it means you can't just agree in the meeting and then drag your feet on the execution.
Yeah?
You can't roll your eyes when the boss turns their back or engage in malicious compliance where you purposefully do a bad job to prove the idea was flawed.
Oh, right. Like saying, I told you so with your actions.
Exactly. The text demands complete, wholehearted internal and external yielding.
Which brings us to scenario 2.
Right.
This is for collaborations where there is no designated leader, just a group of equals trying to figure something out.
The peer-to-peer scenario.
Yeah. And the instruction from the essay is that the very moment someone proposes a plan, you shouldn't weigh the pros and cons. You shouldn't, like, open it up for a brainstorming session.
No brainstorming at all.
Nope. You simply respond immediately with, all right, we'll do it your way.
And this is accompanied by a very pragmatic, almost surprising caveat in the text. The author notes that by instantly agreeing to someone else's plan, you completely bypass the birth of conflict. However, if the plan goes wrong, the person who suggested it shoulders all the blame.
Honestly, here's where it gets really interesting for me, because that caveat completely changes the flavor of the advice.
It does, doesn't it?
It suddenly sounds a lot less like high emotional intelligence and a lot more like a survival tactic for corporate cowards.
I can totally see that interpretation.
It feels like the author is advising us to become stealthy saboteurs. Like we just sit back, smile, watch a terrible idea burn to the ground, and walk away clean because we didn't suggest it.
Just letting it fail.
Yeah. How does mindlessly following a plan you know will fail make everyone happy, joyous, and free? It sounds deeply selfish.
It does sound like a strategy for avoiding accountability if you look at it through a purely corporate lens. But if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Okay, let's look at the big picture.
if we dig into the mechanisms of the author's broader philosophy, it's rooted in a very specific definition of respect. The text argues that insisting others follow your ideas is a fundamental form of disrespect.
Disrespect, because you're forcing them.
Exactly. It violates their agency. In this framework, when you yield completely to a flawed plan, you aren't doing it to dodge blame. You are doing it to honor the other person's right to execute their vision.
Oh, I see.
You're deciding that their autonomy is more important than optimizing the project's outcome.
So you're prioritizing the person over the project, even if they steer the project right off a cliff.
Yes. And the essay grounds this extreme approach to yielding in existential reality. It zooms way, way out.
How far out?
The author asks the reader to remember their own mortality. When you cease to exist, the earth will continue turning. Against the vast, infinite backdrop of the universe, the author is asking, does your tiny, temporary viewpoint on a marketing strategy actually matter?
Wow. That is quite the perspective shift.
It really puts things in place.
Yeah. We go from a disagreement over a spreadsheet to the spinning rock we inhabit in the endless void of space.
It's definitely a philosophical stress test.
It is. But the essay doesn't stop at the workplace. It pushes this concept of yielding into the realm of the totally absurd to see if the reader truly grasps the principle.
It offers a series of conversational tests. It challenges you to see if you are genuinely someone who brings joy to others, even when objective reality is being completely ignored.
And the examples are wild.
They really are out there.
The author writes, try and see if you're someone who brings joy. And the first test is a literal scenario where someone walks up to you and says, dog excrement smells lovely.
Taking something universally recognized as foul and claiming it's pleasant.
Right. And the essay says if your instinct is to counter with objective reality, like if you say, no, it stinks, you have failed the test.
You failed.
You are rigid. You lack emotional intelligence. The required response, the one that supposedly proves you understand the deep principles of life, is to agree and escalate. You are supposed to say, yes, indeed, dog excrement smells much better than night-blooming jasmine.
And it deliberately chooses a famously sweet-smelling flower to contrast with the waste, forcing you to completely abandon sensory facts just to maintain harmony.
It's so extreme, and it lists several other bizarre statements you are supposed to enthusiastically agree with to avoid conflict.
Like what?
Well, if someone says, putting on shoes before thocks looks better, or slimmer women are more sensual, or being a son is much better than being a grandfather.
Wow.
The essay leaves these hanging, but the implication is clear. You validate them completely. No matter how nonsensical the statement, you just agree.
Think about the psychological mechanism at play here, though.
Okay.
When someone says something wildly provocative or demonstrably false, like claiming shoes should go over socks, they usually aren't looking for a debate on the physics of footwear.
Right, they're not looking for facts.
Exactly. They aren't seeking facts. They're seeking validation.
But so, what does this all mean? If I give them that validation, am I really exhibiting emotional intelligence, or am I just actively lying?
That's the big question.
I mentioned the improv comedy technique earlier when I was reading the famous yes and rule.
Oh, sure.
In improv, you always agree with your scene partner. If they say, look at that alien spaceship, you say, yes, and it's firing lasers at us.
Right, because you're building a scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It works brilliantly because most people know they are co-creating a delusion on a stage. But if we do this in real life, aren't we abandoning objective reality?
It feels like it.
If I agree that someone should put their shoes on before their socks, am I helping them, or am I enabling someone who might severely need a reality check?
This raises an important question, and it's the exact tension the author is playing with. The friction between factual truth and emotional truth.
Factual versus emotional. Okay.
We are biologically hardwired to correct people.
Hmm.
When we hear a false statement, our brain's error detection systems light up. We feel this urgent need to fix it.
Oh, I definitely feel that.
Right. But when you correct someone, you often trigger their amygdala, their threat response. You put them on the defensive.
So you create that tornado.
Exactly. The author is arguing that the damage done to a relationship by constantly fact-checking, correcting, and invalidating someone is almost always worse than the damage of simply letting an absurd statement pass unchallenged.
They want to be heard, not audited.
That is perfectly said. Validation disarms the nervous system. In the author's worldview, when you provide absolute, uncritical validation, you stop being a source of friction and become what the text beautifully calls a seed of paradise.
A seed of paradise.
You transform into a person who prioritizes the emotional safety and joy of others over your own pedantic, ego-driven need to be the arbiter of facts. You're choosing human connection over technical correction.
I have to say, a seed of paradise is a great phrase. It reframes the entire concept of intelligence.
It really does.
It's no longer about how much you know or how well you can argue your point. It's measured entirely by how your presence affects the nervous systems of the people around you. Like, are you a tornado or are you a seed of paradise?
And it forces us to look at the hidden cost of our own intellect. We spend so much time sharpening our arguments and gathering our data, but we rarely calculate the relational cost of deploying those weapons.
Which really brings us to the core takeaway of this deep dive. The journey this essay takes us on is a direct challenge to the ego.
A huge challenge.
It is asking you, the listener, to experiment with a profoundly difficult restraint. The next time you are in a meeting feeling your blood pressure rise over plan A versus plan B, or the next time someone says something trivial that you know is factually incorrect, pause.
Just take a breath.
Yes. Notice that urge to jump in and win the moment. Then ask yourself, is the temporary, fleeting rush of being right truly worth the lingering tornado of negative emotion that will follow? Is being correct worth the loss of connection?
It is a phenomenal personal challenge, And practicing even a fraction of this yielding could probably diffuse a lot of the unnecessary tension in our lives.
Definitely.
But to fully synthesize this source material, I want to leave you with one final thought experiment to mull over, building directly on the author's absolute rules.
Oh, I love a good thought experiment. Let's hear it.
The essay suggests that yielding creates a personal paradise. But what happens if this extreme philosophy becomes a universal law?
Okay.
Think about the mechanics of a society where literally every single person adopts this level of high emotional intelligence. If we all instantly yield to the very first idea proposed, without any debate, discussion, or pushback, wouldn't human progress completely halt?
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
We would absolutely be living in a conflict-free society, but it would be a society dictated entirely by whoever simply happens to speak first, no matter how absurd, flawed, or dangerous their idea might be. A world where everyone enthusiastically agrees to put their shoes on before their socks, just because nobody wants to be the one to cause a tornado.